You're listening to the Really Very Crunchy podcast with your hosts, Emily
and Jason.
And we are covering kind of a hard topic this week.
Don't judge me.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah. Don't judge me.
Don't judge me. We're talking about judgment.
Yeah.
How does it apply to discernment? Can you live your life without judging people?
Crunchy Mom Judgment Day.
I mean, that's a huge part of the crunchy community is that feeling of judgment, like you're not doing enough, like you're failing, like you're not doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But we're talking about it not only in that instance, but how it applies to everyone's life.
I guess. Yeah. I guess one of the best instances of from our videos of Crunchy Mom being incredibly judgy is if you're wondering whether you're crunchy or not, and at the end of each one you're like, I guess the neighbors are blowing their leaves again. Guess they don't understand anything about the habitat underneath the leaves. That's a terrible.
I've never said that one, but yeah.
I know. Yeah.
No, more like
I don't write those.
I
I don't write those. So if I don't write those, does it come from a place of judgment for you?
Honestly, the easiest videos for me to write are the out crunching videos.
Where they're just sitting there judging each other for a full minute.
That is the easiest to write, but I think it's because it's myself.
Because you're judging
myself.
Ooh,
whenever
that's deep.
whenever I'm writing it, it's like, what am I thinking? And then how would I counter that? And then how would I counter that?
Yeah. Well, when we were brainstorming this, we certainly didn't think about you or people judging themselves. That might be an interesting thing to explore later on.
But first, let's do comments of the week.
Well, we have a comment.
One comment of the week.
I just thought it was really funny. It was on where Oaks is, you ask him if you have anything on your face, and he tells you all the things on your face and head, which weren't even there, actually, in real life.
That's not true. Look, I have a red dot right where he said it. And I
really?
Totally have
never noticed it.
Wrinkles.
Nah.
Yeah. And I do have gray hair coming in. That's exactly what happened when this situation happened. We were at the store. Somebody gave me a really weird look, which now that people recognize me.
Were you being judged?
I don't know.
Oh.
Now that people recognize me out and about, I never know if they're looking at me like that lady's got toilet paper on her shoe or,
Rarely that. You don't use toilet paper. You use a bidet. You have a traveled bidet for public bathroom usage.
Thank you for keeping up my persona.
Do they make travel bidets?
I don't know. Is this
That's
a market?
a market.
I don't know. Carrying that around, then what are you going to do? Fold it up and put it in your purse? It's like, drippy.
It's called a water bottle. Just squeeze it really hard, I guess.
Anyway, I was just thinking of
a
a circumstance that someone would look at you like you are insane or like what's wrong with that person,
You get that a lot.
Now that people recognize me, I don't know if I'm getting that look or I'm getting a look of recognition. And it's not all the time. But at this particular store, it was happening. It happened twice. And so I was like, Oaks, do I have anything on my face? Because I could just see like a big smear of something across my face. I don't know. Anyway.
Blueberries.
He looked at me so closely. I got down on his level and he was like scanning my entire face, scanning. He never really knows. It's like he wants to say your eyes, your nose, but he knows that that's not what I want because of previous interactions. And so then he just went into like, you have a pimple and wrinkles and gray hair. No, dear.
It was one of the few videos we had that was written verbatim.
Yes.
From our child. It's doing really well. Well, so it brought about a lot of really fun comments of other parents just sharing their experiences with their incredibly honest children. And this one was really funny. It's on Instagram from Learning Not Teaching. A few days after a particularly impactful lesson on types of animals, my 3-year-old loudly asked the bald man next to us in line if he was a mammal because he didn't have any hair.
Oh, kids.
That's fun.
That is.
Yeah.
So I've heard that there's this hack, I guess, parenting hack that you should tell your kids that if a person can't fix it within 30 seconds, then you shouldn't mention it.
I thought you were about to give advice on baldness. There's a hack.
There's a hack.
Okay, sorry.
Head massage. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no remedies for baldness.
Prana mat for your head. I don't know. I'm just kidding. Go ahead. Sorry. Say that again. I didn't.
If you can't fix it within 30 seconds, if the person can't fix it within 30 seconds, then you shouldn't mention it. And that's what people say that you should tell your kids when you're talking about.
Can you give an example? Like,
no, something. Okay, wrinkles. They're not going to fix that.
mm-hmm.
So a kid shouldn't mention it. Or, I don't like your shirt. Well, they can't go if
like
you're if you're at the park.
Who's going around saying, I don't like your shirt?
Kids do.
Can you change it?
Kids do.
Wow.
Anything like that. Or just a physical feature.
If you can't change it within 30 seconds, don't mention it.
That's like a rule for kids.
So that goes for judgment as well. Being judgmental. If you're going to be judgmental of somebody, if they can't fix whatever you're being judgmental of within 30 seconds, leave it alone. You shouldn't
be judging them?
Leave it alone.
Or, I don't know. I don't really.
I'm trying to tie it all in.
I don't see it.
I'm trying to tie it in. Like,
no, I was going to tie that into how.
I could change my parenting method within 30 seconds.
You don't have to tie it in for me, Jason. I was already going somewhere with that.
Sorry. I jump in a little too quick sometimes.
What I was thinking about is we know this family and their kids are always mentioning people's appearance in conversation.
Usually in a negative way.
Yeah. And we just happen to notice that, and we're grateful that so far our children haven't really talked about people's appearance, unless you're saying, is there something on my face? Then they're very honest about what's on your face, but not in a negative way.
Yeah.
He wasn't like, you have a gross looking pimple or, something like that. But I was wondering if maybe that was because of the parents.
Yeah.
Are the parents talking about people's features? And so then the kids learn that that's what you do? Or because we've been intentional about not doing that. Yeah.
Well, that is when we were kind of talking about this, is when you're talking about being judgmental, raising kids that are or are not overly judgmental. A lot of it, or a big aspect of it, has to do with upbringing. And, I think when I was a very little kid, I don't think so much when I was older, but when I was a very young kid, I think appearances, physical appearances in whatever manner was talked about. And I think in general, back when we were kids, that was talked about a lot more than it is now. I could be wrong. But and so I remember getting in trouble as a kid often because kids are always just making fun of each other for different aspects about them, whether it's glasses or whatever, nobody cares about a lot of those things now. I'm not saying it's, universal that people don't care about those things
or
now,
don't talk about it, but you think it's less of a problem.
I do. I think the upbringing side of it is very important in terms of how you feel about other people in general, particularly when you're talking about physical appearance and things like that.
But part of that
kids really latch onto that.
Yeah. Part of that is also bias. I mean, just who you surround yourself with, what you're used to. And we'll go into that more later. There is a study out there that says babies prefer people who look like their parents. And it's just like a natural bias that they have because that is their source of safety and comfort. And so they prefer people who look like their parents over people who don't. And so I think they're innate biases, but then you're also given biases in your life.
Well, kids are sponges, right? I mean, they absorb everything they hear, everything they see. And if your parents are constantly talking about, Robert over there with his, big nose or something, I mean, they're going to talk about Robert, people's big noses. If you make a big deal about noses, all your kids are going to think about or see, and when they see somebody's nose, they're going to comment on their nose. That's how it is. So I mean, that's very much they're very much sponges of that kind of thing, especially since it's physical. When they're they're physical beings, they don't think in abstract as or as easily, I wouldn't think, as adults. Yeah.
Like one thing that I think is really interesting is you were sort of raised to think tattoos were a no-go. Like you should not get a tattoo.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't a big deal in our family.
Then why was your sister terrified to show your mom when she got a tattoo?
Because it was not a good thing.
So, but my dad has, I don't know, several tattoos. And so he always said he regretted them, but he never had a bias against people who had tattoos. He had tattoos.
Wasn't wrong.
So I never really thought it was wrong. I don't have any tattoos. I heard him talk about how he regretted getting tattoos. So then for me, I never wanted them. But all my brothers have tattoos, I think. At least 2 of them.
Well, I also lived in a family that, rock and roll music was a no-go.
Mm-hmm.
However, kind of had the opposite effect.
You never thought rock was bad.
No.
You were jealous of people who got to listen to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So since starting Really Very Crunchy, do you fear judgment more or less than you used to?
Oh, that's a good question.
Being
I didn't know
judged.
you were going to ask this.
Yeah.
More.
Really?
Yes. I'm more immune to it, but I also feel like, oh, what am I doing wrong this time? Or, for example, I have this video that I want to share in my stories.
Mm-hmm.
My kids caught a lizard and they put it in a toy boat and they were floating it around in a kiddie pool. And it's hilarious to me.
It's really funny.
The lizard's like hanging out the front of the captain's seat, just like hanging out, totally content. So funny. But it's in a plastic kiddie pool.
In a plastic boat.
Well, the boat is a Green Toys boat. So I feel like I get a little pass there because crunchy kids want to have water play as well.
So you feel like even if you posted it, you have to at least put in there somewhere, yes, I know this is in a kiddie pool, yada, yada. You can't just post it.
We have a kiddie pool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still feel that. Whenever I posted a story about a vase, and honestly, I got more backlash about the date that was on the bottom of the vase that I still stand by. It says 1938, not 1978. Okay, people, you can't see it clearly in the video. Anyway, we got so many messages about that, the dating of the vase. And I thought I was going to get tons of messages about the lead in the vase.
No.
So I just never know what I'm going to be judged on.
That's not 1938. It's 1978. Get it right, Emily.
I'm like,
I don't care what you have to say. That does not look like a squished 3. That is a 7. I know my numbers. My numbers are real good. I have great penmanship, and that's not it. That's a 7.
Well, so whenever I'd meet people out in public,
such a weird thing.
Since starting Really Very Crunchy, I'm always like, oh, sorry to disappoint you that I'm wearing shoes or, whatever.
That is your usual go-to greetings. Like, hey, sorry I'm here.
Yeah.
It's like you're at Walmart. The person's like so happy to see you. And it's like, don't tell anybody I was here.
It's a joke. I mean, I'm
but
not.
That's your go-to.
Yeah.
Because of your fear of judgment. You have a little speck on your face. You can change that within 30 seconds. Nice.
Thank you.
Got it. It's working.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm like, clearly, but some people do say something like, we ran into another group of moms when we were out hiking. And one of them was like,
the joke judgment.
Yeah, like, oh, you're wearing shoes? And it's like, I always say that. You stole my line. Like, you got there before me.
Yeah.
But I quit saying it because I have this friend who's usually with me when people recognize me out. And she sees me like do the same shtick. So I was trying to change it up for her.
Like you're afraid that she's going to judge you for using the same joke that you used to introduce yourself to people.
But she started dying laughing because she was like, that's her thing. She always says that. And you said it. So, yeah. I mean, or like we went to the fair. We took our kids to the fair.
Oh.
Riding rides probably had lead in the paint on the handles.
My back still hurts from that one ride.
Anyway, one lady
up too much.
A lady saw me there and she was like, first TJ Maxx, now the fair? Who are you? I'm like, who am I?
But I know it's in jest.
I know.
It's not real judgment as much as it is just
they
part.
get the
They
joke.
want to be part
Yeah.
of the joke.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
It's sort
you
of
have to have a level of judgmentalness, whatever that word,
to think that.
to be able to make that joke.
I know.
So it's interesting.
Yeah.
They are actually judging you
But I am actually
to
judging
be a part of your
them.
joke.
Because it's like, you're at the fair. You know, like, what are you
It's
doing
a
here?
revenge judgment.
But I guess they never claimed to be crunchy.
right.
So.
Yeah, you have the platform on which you stand.
I know.
You sit on a throne of lies.
Not really. I am crunchy. But I also live my life in balance. Like, I want my kids to
Listen,
experience the fair.
And this goes back
They
to what
don't
we've talked
have to
about
have corn dogs.
so
but,
many times. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah.
you know.
This is what we go back to so many times, is that you are a crunchy mom who also makes comedy videos.
Mm-hmm. I'm not making videos about how you need to only do this.
You're not being, that would be so much harder.
That would be harder.
If you're like, if we weren't doing comedy,
Mm-hmm.
it would be so much harder, because then you really couldn't feel like you could do anything, like go to the fair, because, you know, it's plastic rides and, you know,
the lights
after dark.
Whatever.
It's like, well, the fair comes once a year, and it's my children, and I want them to enjoy life somewhat. But they can enjoy life with their ducks at home. Like, well, yeah, I mean, that's nice. Ducks are cool. Chickens are
Does
cool.
anybody even have that expectation of me not to go to the fair? Very
if
few.
you look at influencers on Instagram who are the real, like, I don't want to say real crunchy, because you are crunchy, but like the real advice crunchy people, well, they would be saying, you don't need to go to the fair because it's one of those like boring videos with the music in the background. You don't need to go to the fair because the lights at night wake the children up and they won't sleep and it'll hurt their circadian rhythm for 15 years. And it's like, oh man. And then, you know, do they go to the fair? Probably.
Maybe. I don't know.
Dumping their Clorox bleach in their thing in the background of their video. It's like, okay.
Personally, I used to follow a bunch of those
I'm
people
judging these people right now.
I know. Well, I used to follow a bunch of people that anytime I caught a mistake in their videos, it was like, I saw those Boulder potato chips. I know they're cooked in avocado oil, but they're still potato chips. Here you are.
That you didn't make with your own
Little
potatoes.
Miss Crunchy with your Boulder potato chips. I see you.
Yeah. Or they're like, I don't know, talking about.
I shouldn't.
We're sitting here judging.
I know, they're just people. I recognized that about myself, and I was like, ugh, yuck. I don't want to be like that, so I quit following.
But the
a lot of
problem
people.
is that they're telling people how to live. And then they're like,
no, that's a self problem. I think that was a self problem. Yes. I was eating Boulder potato chips. Like,
yeah, but you're not the one telling them to do something else.
But now that I'm in the position of being a quote unquote influencer, it's still, you know, I see it. I see it because I wrote a book about being crunchy.
Pass. It's
no,
comedy.
but not anymore because I wrote a book.
It had funny parts. It was all a joke. It was ironic. It's not real.
It was very real.
It's just a satire book. Nobody understood the joke, even the publisher. Just kidding.
I think judgment ultimately comes from a place of insecurity. Am I jumping too far ahead?
I don't think that that's one aspect of it. I actually have a list from BetterHelp, I think. Here are some characteristics of unhealthy judgment. They have characteristics of healthy judgment and unhealthy judgment.
Okay.
And one of those, egocentric, often serves to boost the judger's ego by diminishing others, reflecting underlying insecurities or a need for superiority. Which those aren't the same thing. You know, you don't necessarily, I mean, judgment, if you define judgment or being judgy to other people, it's whether your intention is to be that way or not, you are making yourself superior. You're making your opinion of that matter superior over the other person's, and that's why people hate judgment, whether you mean to or not. Except for when it's healthy judgment.
Uh-huh.
Which it gets a little weird because it's not always egocentric. It's not always harmful from weird upbringing. It's not rigid, lacks empathy, bias driven. There's also the healthy ones that are empathy driven, adaptive, constructive, self-reflective. Involves questioning one's own biases and assumptions to ensure fairness.
I had a moment.
Okay.
So the other day we went on a Forest Friends excursion to this lake. I don't know why I'm telling you that.
I actually went too.
Jason,
I was the only dad, and I felt weird.
I invited you because last time we went, I ended up canoeing by myself with 2 kids, and that wasn't very fun, especially because the other canoe had 2 moms, and the kids were in this competitive spirit, and so they were like, we're going faster than you.
You needed
to
an
our
extra
kids.
set of arms.
So I was like, rowing.
Actually, legs, because I ended up in a pedal boat.
Okay, you interrupted my story.
I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Anyway, I asked you to come along just in case there weren't enough people. And it worked out that there were, except you got to do a pedal boat.
I had so much fun.
Did you?
It was great. I loved it. I wish I could go to all of them.
Oh, sorry. It's a mom thing. Anyway, so while we were there was this mom, not in our Forest Friends group, and she was so mad at her kid. She was cursing and screaming loudly, like she had zero self-awareness or she didn't care. Screaming at this child. I don't know what he did, but just the level of anger and hissy fit that she had was so extreme.
Mm-hmm.
Previously, I think I would have judged her. Been like,
unhealthy judge or healthy judge?
No, unhealthy judge.
Okay.
Previously, before I had a hard child.
Uh-huh.
But now I could see the rage in her, and I know that I have felt that rage. I just happen to have the tools to use self-control and methods for parenting,
And so instead of you sitting there thinking, wow, she's a bad mom.
Yeah, it's like, wow, she doesn't have the tools to deal with this right now.
Poor thing.
No.
She doesn't have the tools that I have.
No, what did you just say? You just said it makes a healthy judgment is self-reflective.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I saw this. There was no not seeing it.
Or
everyone
constructive.
Was staring. Yeah.
Aims to improve understanding, foster positive interactions, and make safe, value-aligned choices.
Yes. So I'm thinking, okay, this is a really good reminder to me to use the tools that I have in parenting so that when I feel that, this is not what happens. Because this... Does that sound judgy?
No. It doesn't. If you're saying it to yourself.
I'm saying it to myself.
That what made me laugh is like it becomes negative when you're like, listen, look, everyone, this is a moment for me to remember. Because look at this mother who's failing.
No, but
cursing at her child.
It went
That's
on.
when it becomes negative.
It went on. It went on and it went on.
Yeah.
And it was uncomfortable. Honestly,
well, that's really sad
really
for her and for the kid.
But then later on, like hours later, I saw her in the pavilion again, and she was doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I don't know if maybe she had a really bad day. You never know what's going on in her life. But I also think she just doesn't know how to not react that way.
Right.
So that was a moment that I felt was constructive judgment, but not really even judgment. In the past, I would have been so judgy.
Yeah.
And now it felt more introspective.
Yeah. Well, again, because, you've had children with extreme behaviors.
And
who
I
have driven you to the edge.
Yes.
Of sanity, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I can see it.
You do better than I do. So you judge me all the time, verbally.
I'm more like...
Not in front of the kids, though. We do that really well.
Or sometimes I'll just like take my foot and like shove it into your ankle. Like, What are you doing?
Oh, that's the judgment shove. Okay. Yeah, she's judging me right now. I need to change my behavior. What is she judging me about? Oh, I cursed at the kids.
You have never cursed at our kids, have you?
I have never cursed at the kids.
We're not cursors, so it's not hard not to curse. Cursors.
Cuss them up a storm. No, never. Again, in that article, at its core, being judgmental involves making assessments or forming opinions about others, often without full knowledge of their circumstances and motivations. And I think that's the perspective that you tend to have now. What you were just explaining is that we're being aware. I think a big part of being judgmental, and I'm using air quotes, is being aware that you don't have knowledge of people's circumstances or motivations.
And that you don't have all the answers.
Correct. Right.
Because I'm not claiming to be the perfect parent.
Right. I mean, I am. But yeah. This process, it's important to remember, this process is a natural part of human cognition, aiding us in navigating social interactions and making decisions. So it's kind of, we were talking before the podcast about how there's judgment and there's also discernment. They both have different meanings depending on who you talk to. Judgment, to some people, judgment is a no-no all the time. Mm-hmm. And in reality, that's just not how it works.
Because anytime you make a choice, you are making a judgment.
Which also could be discernment, which is the good kind. So it's like, it's weird. However, when this tendency shifts from constructive evaluation to harsh, unwarranted criticism, it becomes problematic. It's weird.
It is weird. And it's also one of these, like, sometimes you just shouldn't care. You should just let it go. And I think that's where the crunchy community, like where things get iffy, is when you start looking at someone and the choices they're making for their family, for example, buying prepackaged snacks or whatever. It's like, why isn't she making her own snacks?
Right.
Why do you care? Like, I think that's where it gets iffy in the crunchy community, where really you are judging because something isn't any of your business. You shouldn't care. Like, for example, food dyes. Why is that mom letting her kid have food dyes? Well, why is that any of your business?
It's not. Right.
So then you shouldn't even be thinking about it. And there's really no discernment or judgment because you can only do what you can for your family.
I think the argument for that is that the people who, the food dye, which we sort of are there, but for our own kids, but they're a die on that hill kind of person. Like, that is so, this person says that is so bad. You just don't know. So I need to tell you.
But it could be anything. Seed oils or.
You just don't know. So I need to tell you. You just don't know. So I need to tell, like, all the things. It's like, you could become a very unlikable person in this community pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah. So they're the educator.
The educator is also the judger. If you're going to be the educator, you got to be the judger.
Because you have to see the problem and then fix it.
But it's not up to you to fix everybody else's problems. And I'm not saying you don't. Yeah. You're not a fixer for other people. Mm-hmm. You are very, that is one thing I've noticed about you. You are very, this is my family. These are the decisions that we have all decided to make together. Mm-hmm. You guys over there, that's cool. Do what you want to do. It comes over into my family, that's when I have an issue. Mm-hmm. It's like, if we're not doing screens, but like one movie a week or something, and your kid's like shoving his iPad in our kid's face, we're going to have an issue with that. Mm-hmm. And I might call you a bad parent for having an iPad. Just kidding. Do I go too far sometimes?
You go too far, for sure.
It's a joke.
I know, because I know you don't believe it.
No.
But.
For those of you out there who don't understand sarcasm, because you do exist, there's some of you out there, one or two, I was being sarcastic. If they're over there bringing, shoving their iPad into our kids' faces and also handing them their gushers at the same time. And
are you judging them, or are you just mad that that's happening?
That's true. There's a difference.
Because this happened. We went to this thing and we put our kids in the childcare, and these other kids had iPads, and the kids with the iPads. When we walked back, our kids were sitting on the iPads.
No,
with the other kid. Not sitting on them.
Sitting on the iPads.
You know what I mean.
The EMFs on their butts were crazy.
No, they were sitting there watching the other kid play the iPad. They were sitting in a chair. They were all three squished in a chair. And this kid's iPad was draping into my kids' laps, and my kids were viewing the iPad.
We're not going to get to have grandchildren because of that moment. True story. Thank you, child care, ambiguous child care that we won't mention. the name of?
We try to be like, so this one time,
this vague thing happened about this iPad that if the person that was listening, they would totally understand and know what we were talking about. Thanks for not letting us have
in that
grandkids.
moment, though, I didn't feel like that's a bad parent.
It was later we decided that.
No.
It was in the car 10 minutes later.
No.
They're bad parents.
That did not happen. I was just like, I don't understand why kids are on iPads when they're in a room full of toys. That's what I said. I don't get it. That makes me mad. That's what my kids were doing.
Yeah.
How long were they doing that?
I think there's nothing wrong with that.
That's not
feeling and
judgmental.
thought. No.
That's like what?
Judgmental is 10 minutes in the car later when we're like, they're bad parents.
I did not do that. Stop.
I'm kidding. I'm sorry. But that is judgmental if that's what you're doing. But anyway.
One thing that we were talking about is discernment versus judgment. And I think that really hits hard for a lot of people. People view you, if you're using your discernment, as being judgmental. And then a lot of times people get mad about that.
Yeah.
Because if you choose to make a choice, a different choice than what they're making, or you believe differently, then you are making a judgment call.
Well, people equate disagreement with judgment. Mm-hmm. And that's just not the case.
Yes, disagreement is what I meant.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, but that's not true. Just because you disagree with something or someone doesn't mean you're judging them.
Mm-hmm.
If you disagree with them, they say, like, you can't judge me. You're like, what do you think? You're better than me? You know?
But you're not necessarily saying that you're better than them. You're just saying,
but that's if you're disagreeing.
I think you're wrong.
If you're, which is saying that you think your opinion is better than theirs.
Not necessarily better. Correct.
Is correct not better than incorrect?
I don't know.
My school teacher sure seemed to think so. I almost failed chemistry. I should have just told him, correct isn't necessarily better than incorrect. Oh, you pass.
Okay, how about this? People think that when you choose a different choice than them, then you don't like them maybe? Or is that where judgment would come in? If someone was doing something that you disagree with, and you allowed that to skew your view of them as an entire person and every interaction, I think that would be judgment.
Sure.
But if you disagree with them, but then you can still view them as a person, and in every case, if you still view them as a person that is equal to you and respect them in every other way.
And interaction.
Yeah, and interaction, you're respectful to them, and...
Mm-hmm.
Then I don't think that would be judgment. It's more discernment.
Yeah, I mean, respect is being able to disagree without shaping your entire view of that person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's respect, not judgment.
And we should be practicing that with everyone that we meet.
Yeah.
What makes it so hard is when they disagree on basically everything.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's also like that whole thing of just because I don't like you doesn't mean I'm necessarily judging you.
True. Yeah, because there are personalities that just don't click.
I can't stand some people. Doesn't mean I'm judging them.
They're just not your flavor.
But I'm making judgments as to why I can't stand them.
So can you even live your life without judging someone?
That's the point. No, you can't.
Well, and I think that's where self-awareness is an important key to not being too judgmental, is like recognizing your flaws, recognizing that you fall short, recognizing that you are never going to be perfect.
Right.
And so like it's a lot easier to see other people and think, well, how can they? I mean, like nobody can be perfect.
I think it's important to just see people with compassion, a compassionate heart, to see people exactly what you just said, as we're all flawed. And I would even say, especially me, we're all flawed. And
did you hear me? That's where I put my mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it. I said that so I wouldn't be including you in it, so I'll let you make your own judgment of especially flawed or not.
Especially me, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm pretty sure every single parent can say this. They were the best parent before they had kids. Before you have children.
I was the best dad there ever was.
I know.
Until I had kids.
You think that I would never do that. I will never give in.
I guess it depends on what you're talking about.
Okay, like my kid would never have a meltdown at a grocery store.
I have thought that.
Yeah, I know.
Pre-kids, I have judged parents for their kids' complete meltdown just because I had no idea.
You don't know. So
then we had Alder.
And like certain personalities are just very different. So perspective makes you less judgmental. And I think that applies to so many areas, like traveling. Mm-hmm. I think because we've traveled so much, we've seen so many different types of culture, it's hard to shock us.
Yeah. Also with like, what are you saying to other people? But I think so much, I would say almost all the judgment that occurs happens within somebody's own head, forming their own opinions about people. It's not outward. A lot of times there are outward expressions of judgment. I think that's far more rare than what we're having inside our brain. And so the question is, what are you thinking when you're judging? What are you thinking when you see situations out and about that you don't necessarily agree with? Are you forming opinions about people that are unfair?
What is the motivation behind the judgment?
Right.
Is it to make yourself feel better? Or is it a moral issue? Or is it like, why are you having thoughts about it?
Yeah.
And are you dwelling on it? I think that's another aspect of judgment. When you dwell on something instead of just like receiving the information and moving on.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can notice something without judging.
Noticing and judging are two very different things. Yes. Now, if you're noticing to all of your friends and they start forming opinions, that's a little different.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing. I mean, it's kind of hard, though. It is so hard to notice without judgment.
Do you guys notice how she's screaming and cursing at her kid? Does anybody else notice this?
One thing I like to do is analyze someone as a person and make predictions as to why they do the things that they do, like that behaviorally.
What do you mean?
Like someone who gets their nose pierced. Like, what is their motivation to have their nose pierced? I don't care if you have your nose pierced. I don't have any thoughts on nose piercings. But what is your motivation to do so? And I like to think about those kind of things when I'm talking to someone, because there's probably a certain personality type that would get their nose pierced. Do you think? So then, like, I'm forming opinions and biases about someone that I'm not even trying to judge.
Yeah.
I'm just coming up, like, building a frame of reference for their personality.
Yeah.
It's getting to know someone.
Right. Interesting.
Do you do that?
No.
You don't? You never see someone and think like, oh, like, okay.
Well, because
someone who goes to the nail salon and gets their nails done, that person cares about their appearance, right? Their nails.
I mean, but we all do to some degree. We brush our hair. We take showers. There's personal hygiene. It's like, I don't sit there and think about the level of degree of self-care to see what kind of person they are, I guess.
No, but like you can measure what someone values based on their habits.
I don't know.
You sort of can.
It depends. Well, yeah, I mean, but not getting your nails done.
No, I mean, well, I can tell like, well, they're probably not really very crunchy.
Okay.
Is that judging?
Yeah.
Really?
Probably. Because you're already forming an opinion about that person. They could have a homestead and chickens and all the works and like to get their nails did.
Yeah, I know. So then that's balanced living.
So you are judging because you don't know anything about them, but you're getting this preconceived notion about them. You're forming an opinion about that person before you know anything about them. But it's not
necessarily a bad opinion.
Okay, so it is judging. It's just not necessarily bad judging. It's for what's the good kind. Adaptive, open to changing opinions based on new information or perspectives.
Well, I don't know, though, because, okay, how about this? Somebody is wearing a really strong deodorant around me, and I can smell it, and it gives me a headache.
Okay.
Is that judgmental that I notice their strong-smelling deodorant, and I think, yuck.
That's the yuck that gets you in trouble, I think.
But then they notice my body odor. They're like,
yeah, that's offensive. Yuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, what's that weird lime smell with BO?
What smells like fajitas out here?
Yeah.
No, the other day I was at the park and I could smell pizza outside. Like I smelled pizza, but I was really worried it was me. And so I asked the mom I was talking to, I was like, do you smell pizza? And she said, yeah. I smell it. I think it's coming from Midtown Market. And I was like, okay, good. It's not me. I don't think it's me. Unless they have a really strong pizza smell.
Yeah.
Seasoned. That was one of the comments of on that same video.
Well
a little girl said, a mom commented, I'm not sure who it was. I knew that my natural deodorant wasn't working well when my 3-year-old said, your armpits smell seasoned.
Yeah, we're a seasoned family around here.
So I think at points, though, there's this gray area where people don't like that sometimes judgment is necessary, especially when it's a moral issue.
Yeah.
But that's where the humility and gentleness comes in, and respect. You have to still show respect, and you have to teach your children to be respectful and have humility and treat others with gentleness and kindness and love.
Mm-hmm. Even when they're doing something that you don't necessarily agree with.
At the end of the day, I think the important thing is that you don't form opinions of people or teach your children to form opinions of people based on one thing or based on an action versus a person as a whole.
Because if you do, I will judge you so hard. This is a really hard topic to talk about because it's like, I don't want to say that we're condoning judging. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I don't want to say that because you can't
also,
live life without judging.
we're just normal people talking this out.
I'm a psychologist.
So I think that's an interesting take because it's like, we are not experts. We're not trying to pose ourselves as experts.
We're just sitting here
trying to
working
understand.
it out.
We're trying to work it out.
We're working
trying to work
it
out judgment.
Because
thought you guys might want to listen.
Yeah. This is a hard subject because the whole narrative of just the cultural narrative is don't judge
at all.
At all. And that's not realistic.
Mm-hmm.
It's not realistic, but I'm not condoning just being a judgmental person. I hope that's clear.
Mm-hmm.
Being judgmental in a negative way all the time is not only terrible for yourself, it's terrible for the people around you. It's terrible for relationships. Mm-hmm. It's just toxic. Mm-hmm. Toxic judgmentalness is awful. Mm-hmm. You're a terrible person to be around if all you're doing is criticizing, judging people because they are not doing it. It turns into gossip. It turns into hurting people.
Mm-hmm.
Judgment, that is what people hate. I don't think anybody, and I could be wrong, but I don't think...
Okay, I think people hate the side effects of judgment.
Yeah.
Because initially, judgment is sort of just like noticing.
Sure.
Right?
Well, noticing and then taking action.
Okay.
Judgment is noticing and taking action, whether action being forming an opinion or changing how you act towards someone, which is what happens positively or negatively.
True.
So judgment can be a positive thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we're sort of talking semantics here. It's a little weird, but like I get what you mean when you say don't judge me, because when somebody's saying that, they're usually feeling attacked.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes people feel attacked because you just have an alternative opinion,
but that's not
an
right.
attack.
Yeah, that's not an attack.
It's not an attack
it's
to have a different opinion.
It's okay to disagree with people.
Right. As long as it's respectful and, you're not trying to hurt people.
Mm-hmm. And
that's where you can't, if you're being hurtful, you're doing it wrong.
Mm-hmm. And hurtful in any way. Like going to the comments and attacking people verbally, writing it out, being mean. If your motivation is to tear someone down, then that's not right.
which people have accused us of being in our videos, even though it's for comedic effect. And, people can get away with very hurtful jokes on television, apparently, but not on social media. I get that. The
comedy aspect is hard.
Comedy's weird.
Because the very root of it comes from some sort
you
of...
have to be judgmental to make comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have to be, or it's not funny.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're attacking the very things that people believe in and love, and you have to turn it on its head. And in order to do that, you have to judge it. You have to judge yourself to make fun of yourself. Self-deprecating humor is judgment.
Self-deprecating humor is the best.
Well, it's not always the funniest. It's sometimes funnier to make fun of other people.
But that's why I like self-deprecating humor, because
you're judging
yourself, so you can't really get mad at them.
Comedy is one of those weird areas.
And just because we come up with a joke doesn't mean we believe it, but we're trying to...
I've been telling that to people for years.
Yeah.
But some people don't understand. It's like, come on.
But somebody believes it.
That's what's hard, is that you make a video that is a joke. It's meant to make you laugh, and it's not meant at anybody's expense. But there's the person who it hits them the wrong way, and they feel attacked. And that's they feel judged. Probably because they have some insecurities based on BetterHelp.com. This is not sponsored by BetterHelp. It's just where.
But if they want to sponsor us,
that'd be great. Come on, guys. Anyway, yeah. I don't know. There's a lot to digest there, and I hope that we've been able to at least provide something to think about.
Something to think about, and something to observe in yourself. Am I a judgy person?
Yeah.
Do I need to work on that? Because I think you definitely can come out of that.
Yeah.
I've done it. And I'm not saying I'm not always not judgy. I have moments where I am, and that's a toxic trait. And it's not really often,
right.
But I used to be a pretty judgmental person.
Yeah.
Perspective has changed me a lot.
Right.
And
I'm still super judgy.
No, you're not.
Just kidding.
So I think it is definitely something you can change, something you can work on, and I think we should all be working towards that.
Yeah.
Because we all have flaws.
Well, having kids has especially made me less judgy of other parents.
I feel really icky about this one. I feel like I've exposed myself as being a jerk or something.
What do you mean?
Because I just said I used to be really judgy.
Not since the world has known you. You have not been judgy. Even then, like you say that, but I look back on our life and you're never just this incredibly judgy person. I think you're saying that you were more judgy than you are now, but you've never been like a super judgy person.
Yeah.
I've never seen that in you. You've actually been a very kind and loving human being to most people I've never seen you just be mean or...
It was mostly about parents before I had kids, mostly.
Yeah.
Mostly just thinking my kid will never do that.
I think a lot of people go through that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people go through that. And we had that experience with Boys Town where we got to be house parents for a year and learned a lot and thought, we're going to have it made. This is parenting 101.
Yeah, if we can do this, we can do
anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a very different world.
It's totally different when they are your children and you don't have a boss walking you through hard interactions if you need it.
Yeah. Well, and at the end of the day, you're not like, your kids, never mind. It's because they can't be taken away to jail. If they're being too bad.
No, like I remember one time I had to take one kid to a police station, like the on-campus police station. There's no police station for me to take our kids when they were not compliant.
When we thought that was good parent training, it's like, well, I mean, they told us in certain circumstances we'd have to take them to the police or have the police come to the house.
Is that like the grandparents?
That doesn't work for a 4-year-old.
No, that doesn't work.
I tried, and they came over and like, dude, you're going to have to work on this yourself. I'm like, really? You can't just watch him, talk to him at the police station for an hour or two? Like, this is what Boys Town taught me.
Just for people, we never called the cops on a 4-year-old in case people believe you.
I did once.
No, you didn't. Stop. People won't know what to believe.
Well, the people who think that I actually called the cops on our 4-year-old, they can have that. I will let them judge me for that. I will take it in good humor.
I'm judging you right now. Thank you for listening to the Really Very Crunchy podcast. I hope you didn't feel too judged this time. And if you did, don't leave a review.
Judging ourselves on this
Constantly judging.
Self-judging all the time.
Anyway, check out the show notes to see more from what's going on with the Morrow fam.
Thank you for listening.
Actually, we've got some really big news coming up. Something really exciting. That's so annoying when people do that, but I'm doing it. We've got something big coming, and it's not a baby.
And it's not this either. Well, this is big, but there's something else. If you are in the Nashville area, this Saturday at 10:30
What's the date?
a.m., August
3rd.
August 3rd. Emily is going to be doing a children's book reading at the Parnassus Bookstore in Nashville, Tennessee. I'll have a link in the show notes for that, or in the description or whatever, for that event. If you want to come and listen to Emily read Little Helper, Big Imagination to a bunch of kids and sign books and take pictures and all that fun stuff, there will be books for sale and you'll be there for a little while. I don't know. That is a big announcement. That's not the big announcement you were talking about. That is to come. I'm excited about it. A little nervous, but
It'll be fun.
Yeah. Thank you for listening. See you next time.
Bye.